But there it is that we're recording now. Been with the company for a while now, and I honestly never thought I'd leave the school system, but our products, particularly Wixie right now, are just ridiculously awesome, and I love what our company does and what it produces. So I am local. I live in Baltimore County where I taught. I'm providing my email right here as well as contact information. I am available to anyone, anyone in Anne Arundel County after hours, or not after hours, on a one-on-one basis to talk Wixie virtually. So, if you want to chat a little bit more about something specific I shared today, you need some clarification, or you have questions about this or that, we can easily do a 5, 10, 15-minute webinar. I also do helpings. I call them with like grade level teams or individuals where I don't want to do 45 minutes at one time. I think it's difficult for teachers to carve that time at once without a special event like this. So, I can meet over time, maybe once a month, twice a month, or something like that. So just know I'm available. You're surrounded by a lot of resources within the district as well. So I'm just part of that process. All right, this last session is about the assessment components in Wixie. And this is definitely a different session that I might do, which is is more focused on integration conversation. I'm under the assumption that you know Wixie, because I'm not going to do basics, and that you've used it a little bit with your students and you're ready to talk about the built-in components. Now, the assessment opportunities can be used from K to 12, but the more established or more detailed rubrics are just fantastic for for instance, middle and high school use. Some of the features also combines a little bit with what you could do if it was virtually as far as monitoring work, but I'm still going to touch on those, regardless of whether you're doing it, face-to-face or virtually, because the tool can be used a little bit in face-to-face as well. The session's meant to be pretty informal. If you have questions, turn your mic off and ask, type in the chat box, whatever you need to do. Don't save it to the end. Just do it in the middle, because that's fine. I got no problem with that at all, and encourage it, because, let's talk about it while I'm talking about it instead of waiting to the end and revisiting it. All right. And for those of you with videos on, I appreciate it so much. Be sure you nod your head a lot or pretend you're laughing at my jokes or stuff like that. It's all appreciated. So I'm going to go ahead and return to the Wixie homepage. As you all know, projects homepage, my projects. I've organized a lot of my projects, go through a new folder. So I go to new and folders. The ellipsis, or these 3 dots, I can move projects into folders to organize. Your kids can do this as well. So maybe your high schoolers or middle schools might organize their work, but I wouldn't encourage younger kids to do folders. Why? They don't need it organized. Wixie projects are ordered by the most recently opened project. So this one obviously was from today, 3/1. I just had it open, where this one for a teacher, I get back to 2017. For your students, you should know, for instance, I'm going to log out to my student account really quick, or log out of my teacher account and log into a student. For your students, you should know that work portfolios. So if this is a 5th grade account, there's everything they did in grade 3. And it's just my practice account, so I don't even know what's in there. And this is everything they did in grade 4. So if you're doing STEM or literacy or language or something like that, having the previous year's files can be nice. Of course, it's a STEM project, but for language, you can track progress. A student opens a file from a previous folder. They don't change it. They just get a copy of it in this year's work. So the previous year's works are kind of pristine and read-only. You can't really modify them. So just know that it's kind of nice because Wixie does this automatically. Art portfolios, for example, all rich opportunities. Let me go ahead and log out and log back in to my teacher account. Excellent. All right. I'm okay with that. Sorry, open one more thing up. When it comes to assignments, as many of you know, we have existing templates, and which are content specific, which is under the curriculum folder, and then templates, which are much more generic, and we're not sure, what you may do with those. Because it can be used in so many different directions. When I taught 5th grade, I remember doing Explorer cubes. And, this could be character cubes, this could be something else, but since we don't know, it's under the templates instead of the curriculum folder. As with all assignments, or all templates, you have a choice of assigning it as is or customizing it. So with customizing, you would get your own copy of it, which you can then modify, add directions, the whole 9 yards, and then you would assign your version, not the one from the curriculum or the templates folder. Right? Not necessarily going to do a show of hands, but how many people are aware of the instructions panel? just kind of ask yourself, yep, there we go. Amanda says, me. Um, if you're, and I hope you guys are using it too, right? Are people using it? Because what's wonderful is that you could embed so much more in this field than you would by typing directions on your page. Okay, you guys are having a little bit too much fun with those thumbs up icons. Very cool. As I mentioned in the past, I think if you're using Wixie effectively, you're using the recording tool, at least your students are. Using non-recording tools kind of like scratching the surface of the good stuff. When you really start to amplify the rigor, the meaningfulness, I know I'm making up words here, of Wixie, then it involves the recording tool, because users can add one recording per page and it can last up to 5 minutes in length. So this is great because kids can take pictures of things, they can draw illustrations, they can, do whatever. And when I say pictures, by the way, I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I'm trying to get to my point to start some of the assessment components. But under the images icon, you can go for the clip art, stickers, photos, or take a picture of things. So regardless of what they've done, it can be something they've drawn, something they're working on, an art portfolio, for example. I love the audio recordings to explain, to describe, to predict, and justify. And research shows we get so much more knowledge as far as evidence from them. The artifact is richer because they're recording instead of writing it or typing it. And we know that's all laborious, particularly the typing. I don't really see any value in having elementary kids do a lot of typing because they get tired out. And although your middle and high school kids can type at a better pace, it's still, they don't always show what they know and understand, possibly because they're not as engaged through just the straight up typing. So when you do things like the recordings, allow them to do interviews or pretend to be something, or describe something, or do a travel brochure, or ancient civilizations. Hi, I'm Nick from the Great Wall of China, which you can see behind me. I want to talk today about ancient China, or whatever. You start to really involve a bunch of creativity. But to that end, with the instructions, or it's a clipboard icon, with the instructions panel, here's a teacher 5-minute recording. So you can easily outline, like for instance, if I'm doing a research project with my kids, I'm going to go ahead and actually start off with a graphic organizer. So I go to new and organizer, and let's just say I want to do the 5-column ones. So if I'm creating a template, I may actually put in topics or like questions they need to ask or whatever. If we're doing interviews or pretend to be, I'm going to set up some type of graphic organizer for them to collect information. Maybe I should have chosen the horizontal ones, so the verticals here. I'm going to provide a hyperlink, which I can do in the notes over here, for them to go to a website and toggle between that website and Wixie as they gather information. Then I may go so far as to add, again, we're going to pretend it's an interview of like a famous person, or again, an object or something. I may add a blank page on each, to add it to the project. And on each page, I would change the instructions to what they need to ask the person, what they need to say if they're pretending to be that person, point of view type deal. So I'm setting up the interview with the research all in one project. And when the kids are done, I'm going to go ahead and click and drag my graphic organizer to the bottom as if it's like a bibliography type deal. So the nice thing about embedding the research and notes in Wixie is that they can't lose it. So like, oh, I lost the piece of paper. We're not accepting that excuse on this project. So yes, I'm using instructions. I'm doing the recording for teacher. My wife is a reading specialist in Baltimore County, and she's working with a 5th grade teacher, and the teacher kept saying, I'll spend 2 or 3 or 4 minutes explaining a project to the kids. They start on the project, and it's if they didn't listen to a thing I had to say, because all they keep doing is, what do I do next, or how do I do this or that? So the teacher ended up, and my wife ended up creating directions, and then they would use a recording of like 2 and 3 minutes to explain everything you had to do on this page. And the kids, God bless them is the only thing I can say, they were like, this is amazing. This one boy, this is amazing. Everything you need to do is right here. It tells you exactly what to do. And they're like, that's what I tell you before every time you start a project, but you obviously aren't listening to me. So you can get really detailed and really structure a lesson for efficient use. So I love that component about it. Now, if I'm ready for the next step, let me go ahead and move this back to the top because I'm still kind of organizing. If it goes back to the top, I'll move that below it. There we go. Unfortunately, right now, they go to file an assessment. They don't see a rubric. This is just a basic, did you do it or not type rubric. Teachers can create rubrics, they're called assessments in Wixie, and then attach them to templates. And while kids are working on that template, they can see the rubric they're going to be graded on. Then you as a teacher can use this rubric and click in different criteria like a 3-2-1 or 4-2-1 or 5-2-1 or 2-1 and get percentages. And when you weight each section, by the time you're clicking all your boxes, you end up with a percentage grade attached to it. All right. So create a rubric, weight it, evaluate it, and then hook it to a template which the kids see so it can guide their work. And then you can use as a grade, to grade the projects. So how does that work? I'm going to go ahead and say this is our, we're going to do famous artist project, famous art research project. This could be an element from the periodic table. This could be branches of government. I mean, whatever research you're going to do. So I've returned to home and I'm going to go into my assessments. And I've created a handful already, but I am definitely ready to make a new one. So, actually, I take that back. Here's my assessments. When I'm ready to make a new one, I go to new and I choose assessment, not landscape or portrait. So this is all under the new menu, whether I'm looking at my assessment or not. So I go into assessments and I am moving into a rubric making program. It used to be an independent thing, which is now part of Wixie. So first thing I get to do is decide my reading level. I'm going to do middle school. Do I want to do 4, 3, 2, 1, or do I want to go up to 5? Or you can see, do I want to drop down to fewer than that? So you can modify and add, different columns to the project. But I'm good with a 4, 3, 2, 1, which means as I assign a point value to it, these are going to be increments of 4. If it had been a 3-point project, we'd see 3, 6, 9, or 3-point criteria. It'd be 3, 6, 9, so on and so forth. So if I'm doing a research project on famous people, obviously the quality of information is the most important. So I'm going to go ahead and look at content. Now that I have content, I have the ability to choose subtopic under it, which you always do. Quality of information, essential questions, amount of information, sequence, creativity, terminology, overview. I'm going to do quality of information. Boom, it populates it. All of these can be modified to meet your specific need. But this is something as far as a basic starting point for content quality of information. And since I see this as the most relevant part, I'm going to max this out at 40 points. Now, your points don't have to add up to 100. It's got a calculator. It'll figure it out. So I'm going to modify. I'm going to set things up for 40. I'm going to set things up for 8. I'm going to set maybe something up for 20. I can choose. So once I'm done changing this to meet the needs, I am going to go ahead and add another row. And you know what? I did like under content, it said the content. Let me try again. All right, slow down, Scott. I got it. There it is, content. It did say terminology. So maybe I am looking for some terminology words. Now, is it worth 10% of content information? Is it worth a little more than that? 20%, you choose. I'm going to do 20, and I'm good with that. Now, if they're doing some type of presentation, although I'm not grading them on artistic abilities, it's got to have a realistic layout as far as, is it pleasant? Does it add to the message, or is it a distraction? So I'm going to go ahead and do artistic expression. I think design. Design was the other one. I'm going to go to design, layout, and organization, and I make it worth 8 points. Same criteria. And I can continue to go on and on based on the ones. I can even go ahead and start a blank page without any of Tech for Learning's criteria to start adding information in. So you create all of them. Research, artist. I can spell artist research project. Now that I'm done with it, and you can go back and edit it later. I've saved it. There it is. And this is, you obviously can open it now and modify it. And what I will do is I'll open it back up because I'm done. I need to, it didn't say, link it to a project. So I want to hook it to a template I created. So you got to have the template ready and whatnot. Now, if your kids have never opened up the assignment, you can link it even after you assign it. But once they open it, you can't link because they already opened and got a copy of it. And this wasn't a component of that copy. So I'm going to link it up. I'm going to go ahead and find my project and say link. Boom, the assignment's been linked. Always good to see. So now when I go back and I'm going to go ahead and choose, I just think I'm set, press finish. I'm going to go back into my projects. I am going to open up this one, and I'm going to go ahead and assign it to kids. File and assign. And let's see, the class I have access to is this one here. Save it to all kids and make it today so we can see it right away. No teams. I don't know if you're aware, but when you do an assignment, if you want the kids to work in teams, you need to allow them to do teams. That's collaborative teams. That meaning that one kid would open it and could share it with a partner or two just in their section, not another class, not another school, just the kids in their section. And they would obviously be able to work on it synchronously, or asynchronously, meaning that if a kid's not here today, that's okay. He can actually, or she, work on it from home, but we can work on it. Me and my partner can work on it, the other one, while we're here today. So on and so forth. So anyways, FYI, that's there. So now that I have my assignment set for the students, there it is, famous artist. I open it up, I click on the hyperlink, I bring that up, and I start doing research. And you'll notice again, I did not say open to instructions. So the kids don't even know what's going on. And I often joke, they're going to wait patiently for your directions. Now they're going to freak out. What do I do? I don't know what I'm going to do. So if you open to instructions, this section will show up automatically. And if there's a recording, there'll be a play. Or if there's a recording, there'll be an opportunity to press play. If there's no recording, but there's words, Wixie will read it too. So you want to, and I'll come back and show you where you want to say open to instructions so they automatically appear, including the hyperlink here. And you can see play, it got started. As a student, and as I progress, kids are going to say, I'm done, or, whatever. You can say, okay, did you have an opportunity to look at the assessment? Because maybe you reviewed it as a group. When they go to file an assessment, they get to see the rubric. They can't click on fields or anything, but they get to see I'm being graded on these components. So it's a self-assess. Do I need to add? Do I need to detract? Whatever. You can talk about how the first one's the most important. Maybe put them in importance in order from least to greatest, because you can, or greatest to least, because you can arrange that order. But at least the kids know what your expectations are academically for this. And if you want to do other components, like I said, design, for instance, that's fine. Things you should know about student work when they are working on a project on their own and it's not due today, it's due like at the end of the week or something, students can go to file and they can actually turn it in by marking it as complete. That was into the file menu. Now, when they mark it as complete, I'm going to show you where you can see that as a teacher. It's like handing it in because they get a note that says if you're marking it as complete, you're finished. You can't make any more changes unless you, the teacher, uncomplete it and let them have access again. So this is a way of them officially handing it in. And if I say yes, you can see I'm going to lose all editing capacity for this as a student because they just turned it in. So now, I'm going to go ahead and log out. Log back into my teacher account. First thing I want to show you is just that real simple under clipboard, open to instructions. And you would have to do that for each page as you add instructions. However, when I go back to the assignments tab, I can look at any assignment I've recently given, which is this one. And this is different than my projects for students. This is the kind of list view I talked about. Here is, I need to open up the right class, my assignment, this research project. And if this was assigned on Monday, I am not a happy camper. In fact, I'm a little bit livid, I got to be honest, because only one student opened it. The rest haven't even started it. I understand procrastination, but we did this together on Monday. Why did no one else open it? So you can see who opened it, who started, who's working on it. And then as you see Jamie, she's marked it as complete. She's turning it in. So that was under assignments. And you get the checklist, you get the list. You got to find your class of who's progressing and who's not. Now, when you click on the different names, you will see a thumbnail of their work. You won't be able to open their project. You can move through the pages as well. If you want a better view and you want to be able to maybe let them access it again, you go to the Students tab. So when I go to the Students tab, I open up my class, go to Jamie. There it is. I'm opening it up. See how it's already marked complete? That's because she turned it in. And thank you for those of you who nodded your head. I appreciate it. If you want them to continue work on it because you leave them comments and say, I want you to continue, you would just uncomplete it and they can go. But for me, anytime you're grading student work, mark it as complete, because if not, they could change it later. Because we encourage kids to use Wixie at home for fun, for their own stuff. I mean, I often say because kids and you, teachers, can do shared Wixie projects by copying the URL, a student could draw a birthday cake, record themselves singing happy birthday grandma, and then send a link to grandma. She doesn't need Wixie to see it. It just opens up as like an HTML5. It's just a viewer on a web page. And if you have a Wixie account, then you can be prompted to open it and save to get a copy. So just know that, it's really easy to share, but you want to be sure they don't, or easy to use at home. You want to be sure they don't modify it. And then I can obviously click on this plus sign and leave a comment. And the comment shows up on the right-hand side where all the paint tools are. So they're there. However, here's the magic of the assessments. When I click on grade, here it's showing up. Here's the categories. I know it's a little small. My resolution's a little small for this page, but I can start off by saying, okay, she meets expectations. So right now I only got a 50%. She did great with the terminology, and her design and layout was pretty good. So she gets a 73%. It's primarily because this one's worth so much. I mean, you change that, she's got 90 all of a sudden. So what's great is you click on the different buttons and the percentages change. Obviously, based on the weighting that you made as far as the overall percentage of the project and whatnot. Now, some people, like asked earlier, can this go straight to Schoology? I think at one point we surveyed users of Wixie and found out there were 22 different gradebook programs in use. We can't design to hook with all 22 and accommodate updates and everything else. So you're going to have to manually type in 73 in your gradebook program. So just know it doesn't do it automatically because of the complexity behind organizing Wixie with the different gradebook programs. But again, I hope you see the advantages here. The assessment is something they can see while they're working. So we're talking more independent work. We're typically talking middle school, high school, intermediate grades. And then you can use it as a gradebook, as a grading tool to give them a percentage score. All right. Any questions with that? You guys are so quiet. I know this isn't as fun as the other sessions. All right. So let's now talk about, and actually, you know what? I think I want to stay in this one. Oh no, that's assignments. Saying students. You have the option, as do your students, I'm gonna open it up, to download the projects. And you can do this under the file menu while you're looking at a project or from this menu. Now, when you get download, there are 6 choices to download. And this makes it available, obviously, outside of Wixie. And this is the portion of the description that talked about use with 504s and IEPs, and maybe even, parents want a copy of the file. And this is how kids who are, like, for instance, graduating high school or moving on to middle school, if they want a couple samples to keep for themselves, this is how it's easiest to keep it because you don't need Wixie. So you can obviously download any project as an image file. And what's nice about the image is if you want to do like these multi-page layouts, which Wixie will actually take like 1, 2, 3, 4 and put it on a single page. That's like a postcard, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on a single page. So it's great for graphic novels as well. But anyways, images are there. Going to go back. GIF files. You can actually create GIFs and put them in other programs too. If you want a video file, if you want a PDF file, and here's the ebook, and the ebook's going to be typically more Mac specific as far as you're using Safari. And then if you want as a Wixie file to attach to an email, you could do that. Again, you're always able to copy a project URL and email it to a colleague. So exporting as a Wixie is just an extra step to it. But these are nice, especially your image and your video or even the PDF, because that makes it something that is probably insertable, again, making up words, insertable into a IEP program. So whatever their documentation is, you can throw in documents, whether it's EL for like a 504 because they're progressing, and you're recording them reading literacy or reading passages. You're obviously documenting their explanation of math problems through audio recording. I love that one. Take a picture of your math work and explain how you solved it. Because we all know in math in particular, there's a lot of not so savory ways of getting the correct answer. Looking over at your friend, for example. So how did you get 7? It's the correct answer, but how'd you get it? And the kids can describe that. So then you can export that as an artifact. We also see a lot of people having kids do videos so they can see their lips when they're speaking, for speech therapists again, or things like that. So they would have that artifact as well. So tons of examples. And Amanda's got a question.
Scott, there's a,
yeah, I see it. It will not read the rubric. The only option you could do, and I would definitely consider it as an option, when you jump into your rubrics, artist research one, I don't know if you saw, you can print it. So you can print it as the assessment or as a checklist. So I would print it as it is, the rubric, instead of a checklist like each one. This way you could put a printed copy in front of them, a little bit easier maybe to do than pulling up that extra box. They can look at it while they're working instead of opening up something that covers the work under file and assessment. And it could be something you review with them. I mean, honest, as a former elementary and middle school teacher, I would almost start off with not only the project, but then review my expectations as a class. I know I just gave a sample of how students aren't listening to teachers anymore, but still, you can do the high points in this way. It can be something that those students who may benefit from being read at least have some type of, connection because it was read to them as a group. And if they have, I love the piece of paper too, because you can easily say your project looks great, but you might need to focus a little bit more on this section. You can point to it in the rubric and even explain it if you want. But Rubrics aren't read. So, Amanda, I'm sorry about that, but good question. Let's see. So yes, exporting. Go back to finish. When you open a project, and I'm going to go ahead and open, like I can open my information here again. Exporting is available under the File menu. Here we go. File, download. Also, there are some nice share options, including the email, which is just kind of embedded here. But check out, when it comes to assessments too, one of the neat things to do with the follow-up under advanced, you can actually export as a QR code. So you can print it or download the code, and then it's like a sticker. You can put it in something. So what we see with teachers like media specialists doing QR code type activities is they do like book reviews. So the kid reviews a book. They had them print the QR code. They stuck them, as you can see, they stuck them on top of the photos, which you could all do in Wixie. You wouldn't need two pieces. But then they put them out to the library, and kids would use devices to scan and listen to the kid's review of that particular book. And she eventually went into bookmarks instead of these displays because there were so many. And the kids got really excited. They love to see each other's, even the bad ones. And then if they wanted to, without any, it's not part of this class, you can do it on your own. They were making reviews for books that didn't have a bookmark in it with a review. So exporting QR codes and showcasing it, whether it be gallery walk, a parent night, maybe a bunch of QR codes out in the hallway, are all rich opportunities for them to share their project. So that's more of a celebration as much as it is the components of the assessment. But again, simple file, share, is download, you're downloading a file, sharing your, again, email, you can post a link, which is just copying that URL on top, and under advanced is QR codes. Yeah. All right. Downloading, I talked about. Text and imaging, I talked about. If you're unfamiliar, and I did, thank you, Jessica. Just keep me going here. Just in case I glossed over it a little too quickly, those recordings, again, are one per page, up to 5 minutes in length. The video recording is the same way. And I apologize if I already said this. You're my fourth session and things blur a little bit as I start talking. So the videos are great because they can hold up objects, point to them, do different components. They can play an instrument, do something, do a part of a science experiment, dress up as someone, pretend to be something. Again, you're looking for creative ways for them to share their knowledge, and Wixie's great in adding rigor or infusing rigor into projects, getting at a little bit more meaningful level. You know, Webb's taxonomy, or Bloom's, I got those. Webb's depth of knowledge, Bloom's taxonomy with the pyramids and the higher level thinking skills. If you move away from those bulleted lists and get them to apply their knowledge instead, then you know you're kind of, so to speak, rocking and rolling, because that's retention, you know, kind of through the roof as far as improves. And again, you're looking them to infuse knowledge creatively. And that's why I love those components. So again, blank pages, rubric on top, neat option. Let me double check one thing here. There we go. And under the assessment window, under the assignment window, being able to track projects was the other component I mentioned in the overview. Clicking on projects, looking at that work, and doing the students. There we go. So a couple tidbits I want to throw in here, because it's likely that you guys are doing a little bit more management than others. Are you aware that A, you can nickname your classes, and B, you can share your class with other teachers in the building, particularly like assistants and IAs who may not have access to your students? If you're not, the process is ridiculously easy. First, you click on your profile image in the upper right-hand corner, and second, you come down to settings. We are not talking about your account, we're talking about your classes. So now that I see the classes that I have access to, and the county uses all those crazy coding, you know, HR 15-173256, you're supposed to know what class that is. If you go ahead and you click, or if you actually type in here, you can give a class a nickname, and you will start to see the classes then by that nickname, like I've done here, compared to the county coding. No, you should still be appropriate with this, but know that you're the only person that sees these nicknames. It's not like everybody in the building sees the nickname. So whatever you call it is again, appropriate, is fine. Something you can do is click the code teacher and make it available to anyone who has a Wixie account in your school. So you would simply be able to find that teacher, slide it over, and they can now see not only see your students and see their work, but they can assign templates to them. And if I got someone pulling 5 or 6 kids in the back, maybe I'm assigning a template, but maybe that teacher's the one evaluating it or looking at it, again, as their progress or providing grades or feedbacks as well. You can see these little, the preferences spoke to the right of even the nickname. You can go in and go ahead and make changes to this class and the options they have. And one of the big one is if collaboration isn't going so well, you can actually turn off the collaboration just for this class and say, no one's sharing team projects. We're starting to use it inappropriately, which you can tell me and I can tell you who did what, or I can't, but one of my amazing colleagues, who I swear it's like the Matrix for him, his mind is mind-blowing. So he knows all the coding and all that, he can interpret it all, and he can provide you with what device added what component to something that could be inappropriate. But if you just don't want to do teams, you can set it up on your own for just that class. And that's the different settings that you can do under My Class. Also, what's really nice, especially as you're assessing and managing it, is you can create a custom class based on the classes you have access to. So if you are working with, maybe you're the guidance counselor and you have a divorce group and you want to make a class, of 2 kids from this one, or 3 kids from this class, 1 kid from this class, or you're a grade level specialist or resource teacher and you need 6 from this class, 2 from this class, and 8 from that class. You can create your own class. So assigning templates is super easy. You just choose your own class that you created and assign it to them. So you would go into the teachers, you would find the classes, and then slide the members over. It's really easy to do as well. All right. So I had told Carrie when I made this that this is typically one of those sessions that do not last a full hour. So it's going to work good for a couple of you. Typically, I would build in time for people to make their own rubrics or assessments if they wanted to. And just know, too, when an assessment goes down to 2-1, it does serve like a checklist. So the last thing I want to show you before we potentially cut loose is what I would consider the easy peasy assessment opportunities. And this one is under, this one is a geometry activity done with a group of 2nd grade math students. And this was done quite a while ago. But what's nice is we built in the checklist in the template so that kids can cross off work as they complete it. So they're self-assessing, self-monitoring their work. And I think this is probably the easiest way to use Wixie when it comes to self-pacing students. This particular body part template is under the month-by-month folder. It's just a goofy Halloween template or October template. You would take the words from down here and drag them up. You can see Wixie does not provide instant feedback. A lot of research suggests kids don't even read. They just click and drag until it sticks someplace or to applause or fireworks or whatever. So the kids did this as an engagement, but it was almost totally ridiculous. They were sure the math teacher had lost her mind because what are we doing with monsters? So she transitions by announcing that the kids are going to create monsters in Wixie and they can make it look any way they want. And she has all of the students move to page 2 and they review the checklist. It's not scratched up. Review the checklist of the geometric shapes that needs to be in their project. Now, at the time, we added these for early finishers, and they're more design elements. We should have done early finishers and added a couple content, like a little bit more demanding content expectations here. But what's great is you got your core requirements followed by some extra credit or if you finish early type thing. And then page 3 in the assigned template was blank because page 3 is where they made their monster. So they would work on page 3, come back to page 2 and cross something out and then go back to page 3 and do the next component of the drawing and then come back and keep crossing things out with the paint tools to show that they did it. So the students all went, they had 15, I think maybe 15 or 20 minutes to make a monster. And here's one of the samples. Usually I get some oohs and ahs talking about how amazing this is because my daughter did this one. So I'm going to go ahead and do this again with higher expectations on your part. I want to go ahead and share a student sample. It was pretty impressive. And, what do you think?
Oh, that's awesome.
So to tell you how old this is too, my daughter did this when she was in 2nd grade and she just graduated college. So yes, we use Pixie instead. But what's wonderful is that creativity like that is not a cookie cutter process. I just roll my eyes almost in disgust when I walk into an elementary school and see 20 turkeys at Thanksgiving that all look the same. It's like, did these kids create or did they do what you told them or did for them? There was no other monster like this in class. And there for a while, I was worried with the clown connection or Kid Picks, Amanda. Now we're talking old. There was no other class like this. I was worried about clown therapy for a little while. Ooh, there's a clown for her monster. No, that seems to have passed. But Still, oh no, Amanda, don't go there. So the nice thing is that it is unique. You guys are totally distracting me. And we saw projects, again, did it have the components I expected? Did you do it in the 20 minutes I gave you? And again, unique and original. It's your own work. Now, at the time, she was in second grade, her sister was in kindergarten, and Daddy had not been in to help create projects in Wixie, or Pixie at the time. So she and I made one after school one day, and I love it. I mean, have you ever seen a triangle sun before? No, but who cares? And again, oohs and ahs, thank you, I see them. So that's the great thing about expectations. If you outline them and how much time, who cares if you color outside the lines or put fish for fingers on your monster? Show me what you know and understand based on how much time I give you and the expectations I've established. And that's why, for me, I'm leery of a lot of painting early on because it eats up their time, unless the painting is the assessment, like it is here with the monster. But I love them to record, do the video, do the audio, or even type before they get into too much drawing. Use the finishing drawing maybe as ways to, if they finish early with the content, they go back and enhance. So use existing images whenever possible. So I love these built-in checklists is where I'm going. And think about it. This was a 3-page template. Each kid did this, and then we reviewed as the class. We didn't really have to review, but then they all went and looked at this. We reviewed it together, and then we talked about moving between blank page 3 and their checklist on page 2, back and forth. Yeah. So I love that too, and I almost should have started with that, but that is kind of the essential of built-in checklists and templates, especially for your primary and intermediate grades. But that middle school, that wild card, and what's the maturity of your class, they might benefit from that there, instead of going and looking at the assessment, actually crossing off your task-oriented things in that direction. All right. Amanda, the next worst thing would be to tell me you were one of my students, and you probably have kids and everything, and that make me feel really old, especially since I started in elementary school. All right. So with that, actually, I'm going to wrap up. I am good to wrap up. I hope you're able to soak some stuff up. Again, Scott, I got some more questions. I need a little clarification. Scott, would you be willing to show this to my art teacher, my colleague? Sure. No worries. We can set up a time that works well for whoever I'm talking to. And again, I do my webinars individually in small, like 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes with like a team to do more show and tell. But if we're having a conversation on how to use it, or we're looking specifically at rubrics or looking at management, those are 10-minute conversations, and I'm happy to refresh and help. As I mentioned before, a lot of great resources in Anne Arundel, but I am happy to help with that. All I got to do is send me an email, and I'll be, like I said, I can respond to you when I'm able. If you are not aware of this using Wixie throughout the curriculum link or the link online, you should be. So I lied. I need 3 more minutes. So I'm going to actually log out of Wixie because I just want to go to wixie.com. And your account is in wixie.com. So there's Wixie and its account, and then there's Wixie and resources.com. So FYI, if you are the e-coach in your building and your kids are using Wixie, let's pretend for a moment that some of your parents are concerned about the privacy of their students. Debbie's told me on multiple occasions, like Anne Arundel is basically, heaven on earth, paradise, the nicest parents, no problems. It's just, yeah, I know, I'm now being sarcastic. I'm gonna stop. But check out under Wixie.com, there is a parents tab. And what's nice about the parents tab is it provides like I think it's a 2-hour or 2 minute and 15-second video. Here's troubleshooting at home if you can't get it, but then here's our complete and total privacy and ad-free policy. As I've told the other sessions, Wixie is used by the Department of Defense schools around the world, the elementary schools. So we were vetted actually through the Pentagon for security. Kids from Korea in schools to Germany, and obviously we were clear and free. So I assure you, and you can say with confidence, that Wixie is highly secure. But if it's me and I'm the e-coach and we're using Wixie, or maybe we're starting to use it a little bit more, I might consider trying to get this posted in the monthly newsletter from the school. Basically saying our kids will continue using a dynamic productivity tool, or your students, your children, continue to use a dynamic productivity tool called Wixie. If you're interested in learning more about this cloud-based program, examine the information and page. So this way, it's a little CYA. However, under Wixie.com, there's also a teachers tab. And this is, when it comes to integrated ideas, the single best location. If I use a booming announcer voice, explore Wixie projects across the curriculum, this is the link. Because we have examples of how to use Wixie with music, how to use it with 8th grade, how to use it with social sciences, how to use it with STEM, how to use it with EL kids. And like 3 years ago, they were in different spots. And we're like, oh my gosh, can you put them in one place? This link is it. So again, Wixie.com, teachers. You click on that link, and this is our, this is it. This is the Library of Congress when it comes to great Wixie ideas. So if I teach 5th grade, I can click on the 5th grade tab. There's a testimonial, this by someone in Howard. I know we got a couple by Anna Rundle as well. And then we have student samples, which is going to populate here in a second, download, followed by an observation quality lesson plan. And these are legit student samples too. Scrapbook, personification story. Harriet the hair tie is actually hysterical. I love it. Visiting a state, newsletters. And then when we get down, we actually have retweeted what teachers say they're doing with Wixie in 5th grade. And to me, these are 5-second ideas. Are we doing travel books? Nah, I don't quite like that one. How about this one here? Oh, stop motion films? No, we don't do that either. Rock cycle. Wait a minute. Let me check this out. So it gives you an option to explore different ideas and how it's used. And if you're working within your building to establish some type of capacity in Wixie, it's a really non-threatening way. Send this link, ask them to examine a link and see if anything resonates. And if you can provide any additional resources, it's a great spot to start. But like I said, very non-threatening. So I would definitely use that. And with that, the attendance sheet is up. This is the session 5 sheet. If you were here early, I hope you didn't use that one. But when you get a moment, sign on in. Be sure you documented your attendance. I'm going to stick around. Of course, you're welcome to turn your microphone on and ask questions. I'm more than happy to do that. And technically, you all will be spending the next 15 minutes working on creating samples, right? I'm going to wink a little bit.
Thanks, Scott. That's always great. Great information. Thanks, everybody.
And the recording's off.